The sky burned with fire as alien warships filled the air above Earth. Cities crumbled, people screamed, and chaos spread like a storm. These ships weren't human. They belonged to the Varaxi Dominion, an alien empire known for crushing every planet it touched. Their weapons were unlike anything Earth had ever seen: energy blades that sliced ships in half, bombs that twisted metal like cloth. On board the UNS Valiant, Captain Aaron Holt stood firm, his face marked with dirt and blood. His ship shook with every hit, but his voice stayed calm and strong. He gave orders quickly, telling his crew to protect the civilians and guide them toward the Mars evacuation gate. Around them, Earth's defense fleet was dying. One by one, the brave ships of humanity fell in flames. But the humans didn't back down. They kept fighting, even as their chances grew smaller by the second. Then, something even worse arrived. A giant Varaxi command ship dropped into view, red and covered in sharp spikes, glowing with strange symbols. It looked more like a beast than a vessel, and it made the Valiant seem like a toy. Aaron whispered to himself, realizing what he was looking at. That ship was the heart of the enemy. Still, he didn't give up. He ordered his crew to fire everything: missiles, rail cannons, every weapon they had. The sky lit up with light as the Valiant launched its final attack. For a moment, it looked like they hit it. The alien ship staggered, but then it responded. One bright beam of energy shot through the air and hit the Valiant. The explosion was massive. The lights vanished. The sound died. Aaron saw only darkness. That was the last thing he remembered. No stars, no ship, just silence. Earth was burning, and the war had begun. Aaron opened his eyes to cold metal beneath him and strange blue lights floating above. Pain throbbed through his body, and when he tried to move, he realized his hands were chained. The air smelled sharp, clean, but not like Earth. He was no longer on the Valiant. He was inside an alien ship captured by the Varaxi. The silence around him was broken by footsteps, heavy, smooth, steady. A tall figure entered the room. She was unlike anything he had ever seen. She stood over 7 feet tall, her body wrapped in silver armor that shimmered with red lights. Her skin had a golden glow, and her eyes burned like hot metal. She held a staff with spinning blades at the end, and every move she made was filled with power. She looked at Aaron as if he were a puzzle she already knew how to solve. Then she spoke in perfect English. Her voice was calm, deep, and proud. She introduced herself as Commander Zetra of the Varaxi Warborn. She told Aaron that she knew who he was: captain of the Valiant, the human who had killed dozens of her warriors and damaged one of her ships during the last battle. Aaron, still bleeding and chained, stared at her and replied with sarcasm, saying that he was just getting started. Zetra didn't get angry. She tilted her head, studying him. Then she said something that caught him off guard. He would not be executed. Instead, he had been claimed. In their culture, the strongest enemy in battle was taken as a trophy by the victor. Aaron was her prize now. He blinked, trying to understand. She wasn't here to kill him. She was here to own him. She even called him her war mate, a title that meant something far deeper among the Varaxi. Aaron laughed bitterly, blood still on his lips. He said she picked the wrong human if she thought he'd bow, but Zetra didn't seem upset. In fact, she looked pleased. She said he was exactly what she had hoped for. Then she turned and left, her footsteps fading into the blue lights. Aaron sat there in silence, still chained, still sore, but now filled with something new: burning anger, stubborn defiance, and a cold plan starting to form in his mind. He might be her trophy, but she had no idea who she had just captured. Aaron was given a room instead of a cell, but it was clear he wasn't free. The walls were smooth and silver, the air cold and strange. He had food and clothes, and guards watched him every hour. Scientists from the Varaxi came in and out studying his weapons, scanning his body, and sometimes just staring at him like he was some strange beast. But the one who visited him the most was Zetra. Every day, the alien commander came to speak with him. She always stood tall, her silver armor glowing, her blade always close. She asked questions about Earth, about humans, about why they fought with such rage even when they were losing. Aaron didn't trust her, so he gave short answers or none at all. Sometimes he told half-truths, sometimes he stayed silent. But she kept coming back as if something about him pulled her attention. Then one day, while walking through the hall with 2 guards, Aaron was attacked. A young Varaxi warrior, full of anger, charged at him, shouting insults. Aaron moved fast. Even without weapons, he was trained. He ducked the strike, grabbed the alien's arm, twisted it, and broke it in one smooth motion. The guards raised their weapons, ready to fire, but Zetra appeared from around the corner. She didn't yell. She didn't look surprised. She only said one thing: if anyone touched him again, she would personally tear them apart. The guards froze. The wounded warrior was dragged away. That moment told Aaron something important. Zetra wasn't just playing games. She saw him as more than just a prisoner. Maybe it was respect. Maybe it was something else. That night, she came to see him again. She stood in the middle of his room and said he fought like a beast, wild and skilled. Aaron looked her in the eye and said she hadn't seen anything yet. Zetra said she wanted to understand humans, not just defeat them. Aaron answered with fire in his voice. She wanted to conquer them, not know them. But her silence after that spoke louder than words. She looked uncertain, thoughtful, even shaken. The cold commander of the Varaxi was showing cracks. Aaron saw an opportunity. He didn't know what she really wanted from him, but he knew one thing: if she kept getting close, he could use it. He had already started watching everything: guard shifts, hallway paths, engine room locations. She might think she owned him, but he was planning something else. He was planning to escape, or destroy the ship trying. One way or another, she was going to find out exactly what kind of human she had brought aboard. Time moved slowly inside the alien ship, but Aaron never wasted a second. He watched every corner, memorized the routes of the guards, and learned where the important sections of the ship were, especially the engine core and the power conduits. He acted calm during the day, answering Zetra's questions with careful words, sometimes joking, sometimes cold. But at night, he worked. He used small tools stolen from storage rooms, learned how to unlock doors, and move through the dark parts of the ship without being seen. He found where the weapons were stored, where the prisoners were kept, and where the core that powered the ship's warp drive was hidden. It was the heart of the ship, and if it was destroyed, the whole vessel would fall. Each night, he went further, and each day, Zetra came to him again, asking about Earth's history, about human emotions, about war and hope and fear. One evening, she stood by the window and spoke of her past. She said she was made for war, bred in the Dominion's warrior forges, trained to fight from childhood. She had never known peace. She had never lost a battle until Earth. That loss, she said, had shaken her. The way humans fought, even when they had no chance, confused her. Aaron looked at her and said it was simple: humans fought because they had people to protect, homes to return to, and lives that meant something. Zetra said she envied that. Her voice sounded almost human when she said it, soft and filled with something like sadness. That same night, Aaron found the core and placed small explosive charges he had built from stolen energy cells. His plan was almost ready, but then it went wrong. Zetra found him in the engine room, crouched near the core, holding the detonator. She didn't shout or call for guards. Instead, she stepped into the room and blocked the door. Her voice was calm but cold. She said he had lied to her, that she had trusted him. Aaron stood, holding the detonator tight, and told her she had made him a prize, not a person. He said she had no right to speak of trust. The tension between them burned like fire. Then, suddenly, she attacked. They fought with everything, her blade spinning, his fists striking. Sparks flew, pipes burst, the room shook. Aaron moved fast, using the walls, dodging her strikes, countering with speed and grit. She was stronger, but he was smarter, and he had something she didn't, pure, burning human fury. Finally, they locked weapons, faces inches apart, eyes blazing. She asked why he didn't kill her, and he said because he still believed there was something good inside her. She dropped her blade. Then, with a deep breath, she made a choice. She said she didn't want to be the Dominion's weapon anymore. She would fight with him. She would help him save Earth. Aaron didn't lower the detonator at first, but he saw something real in her eyes, something she had kept hidden. Not weakness, but change. He lowered his hand. In that moment, two enemies became something else. Not lovers, not friends, but two broken warriors who saw the same fire inside each other. They left the engine room together, ready to start a war against the very empire that had shaped her, and ready to show the Varaxi what a true human fight looked like. Aaron stood still in the cold engine room, the detonator still tight in his hand, his heart racing like thunder in his chest. He stared at Zetra, the alien warrior who had once claimed him as her prize, now standing before him with her blade. Lowered, no longer his enemy, but something strange and uncertain. She didn't move, didn't beg, didn't flinch. Instead, she spoke softly, her voice steady as she said she didn't want to be a tool of war anymore, not for the Dominion. She said she had seen something in humanity, something alive and wild, something she didn't understand but wanted to. Aaron didn't answer at first. His mind was torn between everything he had planned and the new path she had just opened. Finally, he made a choice. He slowly put the detonator away, his eyes never leaving hers. A few seconds later, she raised her wrist device and sent a command across the ship, her voice firm and loud as she ordered all Varaxi soldiers to stand down. She declared that the ship was no longer under the rule of the Dominion. Her words echoed across the halls. Lights flashed red. Sirens howled. Rebellion had begun. The ship turned into a war zone almost instantly. Not everyone obeyed her command. Loyalist Varaxi troops rose up in anger, trying to retake the ship by force. Blades clashed, energy shots lit the halls, and screams of war filled the air. Zetra led the charge with fire in her eyes, fighting those she once called her brothers. Aaron followed beside her, armed now, his hands no longer tied. He moved like a ghost through the chaos, using traps and tricks, striking from shadows, helping others escape and gather weapons. He freed human prisoners and even some aliens from other races who had been taken like him. The rescued fighters stood by his side, looking at him with awe. They had heard stories of the human who had become the alien warlord's trophy, but now they saw the truth. He was no slave. He was fire. Together they pushed forward. Aaron and Zetra fought as one, their movements sharp and deadly, their trust growing stronger with every clash. She protected him from blades, and he covered her from enemy fire. They cut a path through the ship toward the control bridge where the command systems lay. But time was running out. The Dominion's AI had already begun charging a Tinjin super weapon buried deep in the ship, a weapon aimed straight at Earth. If they didn't stop it soon, the entire planet would vanish in light and fire. Standing in a quiet moment behind cover, Aaron turned to Zetra and told her what had to be done. He needed to reach the control core to disable the weapon. She nodded without fear and said she would clear the path ahead. They moved again, leading a small team of rebels through shattered halls. The bridge loomed ahead, but a wall of elite Varaxi soldiers blocked the final corridor, standing like statues in the dark. Aaron looked at Zetra, doubt in his eyes. There were too many. She met his gaze and said something that made him believe. Again, they didn't need to win, just last long enough. She raised her staff high, and with a battle cry that shook the walls, she charged. Aaron followed, shouting with her, leading humans and aliens into the fire. The final battle had begun. The Dominion might have had more soldiers, stronger weapons, and a ship built like a god's throne, but what they didn't have was spirit. What they didn't have was the burning will of those with something worth dying for. Aaron fought like a man with nothing left to lose, and in that fire he found everything he had been fighting for. They broke through the last line of defense, and Aaron raced to the control core. His fingers flew across alien symbols, blood dripping from his arms as he worked to shut down the weapon. Then the doors behind him opened and someone stepped inside. The room turned cold. Aaron looked up and saw him. The High Warlord of the Dominion had arrived, and he wasn't going to let Earth survive. The moment the High Warlord stepped into the control chamber, the air turned heavy with fear and power. He was massive, taller than Zetra, covered in black armor that pulsed with red light, and his presence made even the metal around him seem to tremble. His voice rumbled like thunder as he spoke, filled with hatred and pride, calling Zetra a traitor and Aaron a weak animal who had poisoned her mind. Zetra stepped forward, blocking the path between the warlord and Aaron, her blade already drawn. She didn't try to explain herself. She didn't beg. She simply said that she had seen truth in the humans, that she had seen something brighter than war and control, something that made her want to fight for more than just orders. The warlord laughed, cruel and bitter, then charged at her with terrifying speed. Their battle began like a storm, their weapons clashing in sparks and lightning, each strike shaking the chamber. Zetra fought with everything she had, but the warlord was stronger, older, and filled with rage. He struck her hard, sending her flying across the floor. Aaron shouted her name but kept working at the control core, fingers moving fast through the alien interface, trying to stop the weapon that was now minutes away from firing. The system fought him, locking out his access again and again. Behind him, Zetra rose slowly, blood dripping from her mouth, her armor cracked. She stood again and rushed back into the fight, not because she could win, but because she had to hold the warlord back long enough for Aaron to finish. Their blades met again, sparks flying, and the warlord roared, driving his weapon deep into her side. She fell with a scream, dropping her staff. Aaron turned just in time to see her collapse, and something inside him snapped. He picked up her fallen weapon and turned to face the warlord. The giant alien laughed again, mocking him, saying that a weak human could never defeat a warburn like him. But Aaron didn't listen. He charged. The warlord swung with crushing force, but Aaron ducked, rolled, and struck with the spinning blades. The staff cut through armor, leaving deep wounds. The warlord howled in pain, striking wildly, but Aaron didn't stop. He moved fast, full of fury, full of fire. He dodged another attack and drove the blade deep into the warlord's chest. For a second, everything went still. The warlord staggered, shocked. Then he fell, crashing to the floor with a heavy thud. Aaron stood over him, panting, covered in blood. He rushed to Zetra, dropped beside her, and held her hand. She was still breathing, barely. Her eyes opened weakly, and she looked at him. She smiled, just a little. She said he was never really hers to own, but somehow she felt like she belonged to him now. He smiled back, holding her hand tighter, and told her that she wasn't just a weapon anymore, she had become something more. With the last bit of strength left in him, Aaron turned back to the console and entered the final code. The weapon shut down. The countdown stopped. Earth was safe. The rebel Varaxi forces stormed the control room, taking command of the ship. The Dominion's flagship had fallen not by force alone, but by courage, by defiance, by a human who refused to kneel and an alien who chose a different path. They didn't win because they were stronger. They won because they believed in something more. And in that belief, a new future had begun. Months passed since the fall of the Dominion's flagship, and the galaxy began to change in ways no one expected. The once feared Varaxi were no longer united under the High Warlord's brutal rule. Many of them, led by Zetra and others who followed her example, had turned away from conquest and joined in building something new. The great war that had burned across stars started to cool. Peace talks began, slowly and carefully. Some alien species still watched humanity with fear, but others now saw them with respect. On Earth, Captain Aaron Holt became more than a soldier. He became a symbol of what humans stood for: courage, sacrifice, and the fire to fight even when the odds were impossible. He never called himself a hero, but to those who had been saved, he was something more than that. Zetra, once a feared war commander, was no longer seen as a conqueror. She stood beside Aaron, not as his owner, not as his captor, but as his equal. Her armor was changed, still strong, still noble, but no longer colored for war. Together, they stood before the United Human Front and the new Varaxi rebels during the first ceremony to honor the peace. As they walked onto the stage, people from every world stood and cheered, human and alien voices rising together. Journalists once asked Aaron what it had felt like to be taken as a prize by an alien warrior. They expected him to speak of fear or anger, but he smiled, looking toward Zetra, and gave an answer they didn't expect. He said she had taken him, yes, but not for the reason they thought. She had seen something in him, something she didn't understand but couldn't ignore. She thought he would be easy to break, easy to claim. But instead, he showed her what it meant to be human. He told them she had expected a trophy, but she found a fire, and that fire changed everything. After the ceremony, the two of them walked alone beneath a sky filled with stars, no longer enemies, no longer strangers, but something stronger. Zetra looked up and said that the stars didn't feel cold anymore. Aaron looked at her and said they never did, not if you had someone standing with you. And so the story of a human taken as a spoil of war ended not with destruction, but with unity. Not with chains, but with a hand held tight. It was a reminder that even in the darkest battles, even between the most different of beings, something powerful can grow, not just victory, but hope. Hope that a war-bred alien and a battle-scarred human could not only survive, but change the galaxy together.